Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Wednesday webinar. And tonight, for your delight and delectation, we have delving into the future possible energy realms with Andrew from Active Kinetic. Something we've always been interested in is the alternatives to the fossil fuel empire and the kind of other alternative energy sources we really need to be getting behind, supporting, and getting out there to the world. So. Without too much further ado, let's come over to Andrew. Thank you very much for coming, Andrew. Tell us more about Active Kinetic and what you're doing.
Okay, great. So I'm Andrew Karim. I'm actually the founder of Active Kinetic One. A few years ago, during the lockdown, I was rather bored. I come from a really technical background, but I actually couldn't stay within the IT realm because I had a neurologic issue when looking at programming screens. But I was a pretty good programmer. And I developed systems for Microsoft, for Eurostar, and for the NHS, a symptoms and diagnosis system that 25,000 people used every day. But subsequently, I had to leave that career behind. And now during the lockdown, I developed this technology called Active Kinetic, or that I've called Active Kinetic One. So Active Kinetic One is essentially, in a nutshell, it generates energy and it uses a slightly different format to do that. And it seems to be that we can adapt it to a variety of different scenarios that you can't with traditional technologies. And that is where I've started to explore and develop some of my prototypes. Again, as I say, a lot of it is on a shoestring budget. But I have come quite a long way already, and being able to prove that using this method could potentially provide us the clean energy that we need without any emissions at all. And it's low cost and you can recycle it. So the theme tonight was about plastics, in actual fact. So I've sort of orientated a bit of the conversation about that. I'm sure none of you, I need to teach none of you about this, that fossil fuels are causing devastation and irreversible climate and environmental damage to the earth, which we all know. But some people may or may not know this. But aside from the fact that fossil fuels are causing environmental damage, which is causing disruption to actual wildlife and our well-being, the actual fact is that fossil fuels in the air are actually shortening the length of our lives. So that is something that obviously is a major issue that we would like to get away from. Again, something that a lot of people don't know is that there are actually microplastics now that are airborne, and these microplastics are being ingested and it's actually showing up now within results. And whether it be from water supply or food supply or literally the air, we are ingesting those plastics, and they've been known to cause stroke and heart failure. So obviously, we've got this plastic issue. We think that what we can do with those plastics is to recycle them, and we can actually use low-grade plastics and recycle them into the majority of our technology, which is actually quite good. So most technologies use a rotary system. Active Kinetic One doesn't use a rotary system. It actually uses a pendulum system, which is the key difference in that technology. And the being able to use a technology that uses a pendulum system, actually what it means is that it's much lower energy yield, it uses far less energy to maintain momentum, and momentum is literally the core of being able to harness electricity. We harness most electricity because of momentum. So just hitting on a few other points before I go down and give you all the technical details about Active Kinetic One. What we know is that obviously currently at the moment we're using a variety of renewables, and some of those renewables are can be recycled, others can't. Predominantly, one of the most powerful technologies that we have available to us is solar. Unfortunately, solar doesn't always recycle too well. There are actually, there are actual advances in that, but nevertheless, we are still left with a lot of plastic and a lot of silicon that is low grade, and we can't use it. But solar is great. Don't get it wrong. I'm a big fan of solar. In actual fact, we can integrate and combine it with our technology very well. But what I'm actually really getting at is that every single technology seems to have a very high price to pay for recycling, where in this technology we've actually got a very low price that we to pay for recycling, and a lot of the energy we can actually, it's electricity, so we don't have to worry about leaning on any other chemical industry or anything else like that, because we can actually recycle this technology. There is, as far as I understand it, there is more carbon in the atmosphere at the moment than all infrastructure that humans have ever built on Earth. The IPCC are saying that there's, needs to be removed twice as much carbon as we're putting into the atmosphere. And the overall is that if we don't reduce this, I understand, by 2050, then we're really in a bit of a problematic situation. So how can this technology help that scenario? Well, we're using sources of energy that are renewable. We're looking at wave technology specifically as a core area that we can use this technology in. So I'm going to just introduce you to the actual technology very quickly, so that you get an idea. Now, this is basically a pendulum generator. It looks quite simple, but this concept we've actually been able to evolve so that we're using arrays of these to generate electricity. And one of the things that you'll probably notice is that I don't need to move it very much. Up here, we've got a couple of lights attached to a coil, and in here is a magnet. It's a really simple system. Basically, I don't need to move it very much to generate electricity. You can imagine on a wave or through wind power, alone, you can generate, clean energy in quite vast quantities, to be honest. And if anybody's wondering about this small machine and how robust it is, well, I'll show you that it won't break. It literally will last such a long amount of time. But even when it does break, the fact is that the majority of the structure is plastic. The coil is something that we can quite easily melt down. Copper melts at a pretty low temperature, so we can use the electricity that we generate to melt the actual coil down. And the magnets within it, at the moment, in this model, we are using neodymium magnets, which obviously, that's a rare earth element, but we can actually switch over to aluminium and Ali nickel type magnet, and that's actually quite effective. It produces a similar yield, but potentially we would need larger machines, slightly larger, not much larger, but slightly larger. And when we're talking about oceans, we're not using up huge amounts of land. So this is part of the technology that I want to show you. I've got a couple of examples that I'd like to show you, and I've got a video or two. I don't know if I can quickly show you that, if that's yeah.
It'd be fine.
So
Have people show
I'll
videos
just
before.
share I'm hoping I've shared the right screen here. So,
Yep, we can see animals generate electricity.
okay, so this is actually a different part of it, but I'll skip to what I wanted to show you, which is how efficient. Right, so this is a video of a really this is showing you how simply the technology can generate electricity from just a small amount of energy. And then we'll go to the next. So have a quick look at this. I hope, can you hear that, by the way? Still, are you guys hearing that or not?
It's still loading. Let's listen.
Okay.
I waited for days to undertake this experiment when the web.
Did you hear that?
Yes, yes.
Oh, you could hear it, right? Okay, I'll rewind that. So this is just one of the videos that I made. Literally almost still, but nonetheless, still moving.
I waited for days to undertake this experiment when the weather was wind-free and the water would be rather still, just to see what would happen to the active wave energy converter. As you can see, there's virtually no movement in the water, yet the data readings are still showing small amounts of electricity being generated by fluctuations of ripples in the water.
Bear in mind, this water is actually pretty much mirrorish still. It's got a mirror on it, that's how still it is.
Calculating from this data, a 1 meter wide by 6 meter long pontoon in still water could generate about 12 volts. In the background, you can see the mirror image of Rochester Castle in the water.
So that really is just to demonstrate to you exactly how much energy is required when it comes to a pendulum system. I mean, inside of that box, there's actually a number of different of these oscillators that I was showing you previously. They're arranged in a specific shape that allows us to capture energy from any angle of movement, and so that's really just showing you, I guess, the initial step of the technology in really no waves at all. And then I've got this video here, which is probably quite a good one for you guys to actually see the technology in real motion. So what this is showing is how many volts, I guess, can be created.
This active landscape could be generating an estimated 29 terawatts of energy. That is more energy than we need. The active kinetic one-wave energy converter generates electricity from the movement of the waves. As you can see, it operates on relatively small waves. The magnet oscillates on the pendulum to generate electricity. In this larger example, we show the voltage being generated by several oscillators inside of a container. The data reads over 14 volts. The blue.
So just to capture that bit there, so these waves are really not, tremendous waves. Obviously, we got permission from the guys down at the Rochester Sailing Club to put this into the water at the marina there, and I mean, from that small box that you can see there, that's less than half a meter and sort of about 33 centimeters wide, we were generating over 14 volts of current, constant current from the waves, which are quite small. They're not really, they're ripples in the water. So that's probably, for that size box, it's almost we're almost peaking what we could produce. We could actually get a little bit higher than that. I think we can get up to around about 25 volts, because we've not maximized the entire area of the box. But it's proof in itself that it's genuinely, you know, using this technology will provide us from the oceans a reasonable amount of clean electricity, whether we choose to use it. And bear in mind that boats and shipping, they use some of the dirtiest fuel available. And if we can bring them energy in, you know, to those environments, we could potentially go towards an electric shipping system. And these could be located virtually anywhere out in the ocean, so that ships could recharge. But there are actual systems using this same system again, the patented technology. This is not really all that we've produced. We've actually produced quite a few systems that don't only use the ocean or the river water, but it actually uses other motion as well to produce clean energy. So the reason that I'm really, you know, here talking about it is because I really want to spread awareness. I mean, yes, you know, I do need to raise funds to be able to, you know, carry on. But I've done quite a lot of myself. I've self-funded quite a lot of it. I've come quite far, and I feel that I've actually got a few products that are almost ready for the shelf, which is great. So it means that we can start using some of that technology to try to self-fund ourselves a little bit.
So it's great.
But from an overall point of view, it would be great to develop a little bit more in the way of awareness. So that is what we're always going towards. A normal car battery is 12 volt. I am not on the maths of volts.
That's just a question from Helen now. I'll put
Okay.
in there. Yeah, I think John had a question there, and I was just going to ask: is there how many oscillators there is in that box? Is that one or three or four? Do you say there was a few?
In actual fact, it's an array of oscillators. So it's not what you're looking at here is literally a single array, and inside the box, it's a multiple array of oscillators. So there's a multiple array of magnets arranged in a particular way, and an array of coils. And obviously you can just extend that and keep going with it. That's the beautiful thing. So you can really expand this technology. If you're looking for scaling up, you can really scale up. And I mean, in actual fact, really this technology is, it was almost already there. It's a discovery that, you know, brings together Newton and Faraday technology in a nutshell. That's what it really does. You know, it brings the two together. It amalgamates them. You know, the Newton's cradle, which is a pendulum system, and obviously Faraday, which we've all come to now use, but because of Nikola Tesla and his invention of the AC generator, we have now, you know, we're now using the generator everywhere for most things, you know, whether it will be so that's what some of my slideshow sort of covers, I guess.
Okay. I think John had a question. You can take it now or when works for you and your presentation.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, so sorry.
Yeah. So you've mentioned that you measured the voltage, but
Yes.
have you measured the actual wattage that's coming out of this?
Yes. So we've got a system whereby what we've actually done is we've measured it by attaching a device to it, and then tried and then gain the actual wattage. And that device is actually this device here. And what it does is it Bluetooths to my phone. So when you saw on there that I had the readings on my phone, this was actually sending the readings to my phone. So we worked out that the wattage from that small little box there was making around about 1.4 watt, but that's not its peak. So at the moment, these are just prototypes. If we were probably looking at its peak from that little box, we could be probably looking at around about 4 watts. per box of that sort of size. And keep in mind that we're only talking about a single layer. We can stack these boxes one on top of the other, and we can create a very, very big array of these machines. And in actual fact, we're not using it in its most efficient form. Some of our latest prototypes have, produced, using it in a slightly different form, have produced far more energy than we could even imagine, really, to be honest. I mean, it is nearing the mark of what you would expect from a small rotary generator, because rotary has a number of coils and you reuse those coils. That's great, but if you want to expand that system, you now have to change the entire unit, whereas with this you can just extend it and produce more energy. So oscillation is really underused, undervalued, and it's that technology that we've now discovered. Sorry.
It's very good to see these are just on very small waves. Obviously, you put this out on a much bigger waves, you're going to generate a lot more. There's a question there from Will. Did you want to ask that one, Will?
Is that in the questions?
Yeah, it's in the questions.
What material would you require for full-scale prototypes? Yeah, so in actual fact, there's a very small, we think that we can get away with a very small amount of steel.
So what's inside it? What metals are involved? You said there was magnets. What sorts of metals?
So the metal inside it is they are neodymium magnets. That's what we're actually using within the actual core structure. So I've got another one here. You can actually see. You can see that. See inside here, we've actually got neodymium magnets arranged here.
I don't know if I want to stop sharing so they can see that a bit bigger. We've still got.
Okay, yeah. I'll close that. How do I stop the sharing? Oh, right, stop share.
No, you can start again when you.
Okay, so in here you can see the array of magnets, and that array is passing through the coil, and the coil's copper. The magnets are neodymium, and everything else is just plastic, which could be recycled plastics. So, and then these pendulum strings, they're made out of Kevlar, which is 10 times stronger than steel, and they're unlikely that you will break those too easily. So once you've actually got this moving, you're on par with what an AC generator would kick out at quite a reasonable RPM, not its highest RPM, but what we're not competing against. We're not actually competing against a constant flow of energy. In actual fact, I've got quite a good read here for you guys. It was from AI, this bit of info, and hopefully I can just, here it is, right? So shall I share that screen? Actually, it'll be a bit, then you can actually see it. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so Zoom share. I'm still getting used to, believe me, getting used to sharing. So here we go. Right. So this is this is pretty much what AI came back with. Explain the theory pendulum can maintain momentum, minimal energy expenditure compared to rotary systems. The system, therefore, pendulum can maintain momentum with minimal energy expenditure compared to rotary systems. Suggests that that the pendulum system are more efficient at maintaining their momentum over time with relatively low energy input compared to rotary systems. And this is what it came back with, which was pendulums can maintain momentum with minimal energy expenditure due to their inherent design and principle of conservation of energy, which we already knew. you know, conservation of energy is essentially exactly what Newton, you know, sort of, you know, one of the Newton laws. And we knew that, you know, obviously the system already does exactly that. But it uses the Faraday technique, if you want, which is passing a magnet straight through the flux of a copper coil, and you're generating far more energy than even trying to pass it over the actual copper coil. So by using this technique, you're actually really, you know, generating the most energy out that you can from that induction system. So it's a pretty powerful method that we can use, and because we're not relying on what rotary does, so the two systems are very, you know, really quite different, because with a rotary system you want a constant flow of like steam or something, you know, to constantly flow. We could do the same with this, and you know, you would get, you know, a similar reaction, but when we're talking about pulsatile or inconsistent kinetic energy, this is far more efficient, and also it will retain momentum. So it fundamentally is what's known as a new building block for science. It's a core technology. It's not just that we've developed something. You know, aside from that, we can literally take the technology as it stands, put it onto the water, and we can generate electricity. But there are many things that we can also do with that technology. And so one of the things that I thought that because I'm running out of time, I'm not going to go through the slides, I don't think, maybe today, because I've got some other bits that I'd like to show you. But this is one of our small mini micro generators. And this is actually able
Do you want to make the screen big again, so they can see it? And you've taken a couple of questions already. You can flow on for time. Don't worry, because you're taking questions as it goes a bit. So we've got till later. We can always flow on 5:10 for those who want to stay longer, or a little longer for chatting. Sometimes we stop the recording and give people 20 minutes to chat afterwards.
Right. So this bit of technology here is one of our prototypes. If you want to, you know, and this is this is one of the micro prototypes, and that's just a micro generator, and generates electricity from movement. So the more that you sort of move it around or you knock it about, and you're generating, you know, a fair amount of energy straight away. Which, you know, again, a lot of these systems you wouldn't be able to just do that with a standard AC system. And then I've got another generator here, and this generator is, well, basically this one would work on the actual body. I've got a few videos of this, but essentially while you're walking along, this is moving, and when it moves like that, it will eventually. The idea with this one actually is that it's meant to last a little bit longer. I think the switch might have gone on that one. Bit of a shame. Or that it's just been left around. Oh yeah, it's just been left around for a while. So when it's not got any energy, it really does take a while, because it holds the energy for a lot longer, this system. So, but effectively, if you're walking with this, it will literally generate electricity, and you can imagine that would be quite useful, you know, for charging your phone, or for just a general light that you know that you knock around with, that sort of thing. And you know, obviously that's one of the products that we're.
Andrew, how would that work a bit? You'd put it in your pocket, you'd shake it around, you'd go dancing on your feet.
Yeah, so I've got a video that actually shows it a little bit better, actually. If anyone wants the link, I can try to add it to the chat. But essentially, if you've got that in your pocket, or a, you know, hip bag or something like that, or your rucksack, it will just knock around. in there because of your own movement, and it will generate electricity just from your own movement. And
Brilliant.
really only needs movement, kinetic activity to exist. And that's really it. So that it's these technologies, as far as we see them, they're quite simple technologies that are missing gaps in what the world that we already live in. It's just that maybe the connection wasn't made earlier. Maybe that it was this need for us to, which we did. We when I was during the lockdown, I completely disassembled energy technology and looked at it from the ground up, and then came across what you're seeing here, which really in total, as I say, it's a new path for us to explore more of, but we've already or I've already found some real core areas where we could produce vast amounts of clean energy at a very low cost. I mean, and emission free as well. It needs deploying, it needs to be scaled up. There's work to be done, but a lot of the materials we can literally suck out of the ocean, because those plastics, we don't really want them in the ocean. This great big issue where we've got millions of tons of plastic and they don't know what to do with it. We can help to take care of that very quickly, and use that for energy systems instead of it polluting the water by the ton load. I mean, it's a lot cheaper than using metal as a construct like this. So the construct of it, the overall construct, because of the way that it works, doesn't need to be metal. We won't. It's not the sort of machine that will develop huge amounts of friction, and friction is one of the reasons that you need to use a metal structure, and obviously rotation starts to develop a bearing, or you need bearings to maintain that rotation in good order. Otherwise it sort of you want one knock out of shape, and the whole thing can literally start to fall apart on itself. So we don't have that. We don't have those technical restrictions with this technology. And as you're seeing it at the moment, you're seeing it in a very elementary form. My plan is to take it into an industrial shape and build that will be far more robust than what we're even looking at here. So once we get to that stage, which hopefully won't be very long, because I don't, I'd like it to be part of the energy mix. It will provide a clean energy source, very and reduce the impacts that we're currently we're seeing devastating effects already. I don't know if anybody saw what happened to Dubai yesterday, but that was pretty mean. And if that is as a result of climate change, then we're probably, then they bang on them, on the mark when it comes to what's coming for the future for all of us. So obviously I'm keen to see that technology take shape, or this technology take shape. I've already seen the results from it, and I'm confident enough to say that we really would be able to provide huge amounts of clean energy across the globe, to every far region, coastal areas. 50% of the population live on the coastal area. Sorry, somebody's got their hand up there. So John.
Yeah, so I'd just like to go back to this question of power. I think you said you'd measured 1.1 watts from the one that was floating in the water when you showed us the video. Is that correct?
1.4 watts. I think that small prototype would create about 4 watts.
Right. So, but that's only just about enough to charge a mobile phone.
It is, yeah.
So, but that was quite a large unit. So I'm just questioning the practicality of this. The smaller one would be much less power than the large one that you showed us. I mean, and just to get a perspective on this for other people who are listening, power systems run in millions of watts. You know,
that's right.
That is on the
Billion.
UK grid.
Yeah.
50 million watts might be a typical sort of demand. So this has to go a very long way to show that it can get anywhere near that. Have you investigated the cost of a kilowatt or megawatt sized generator using this? And because ultimately the key parameter that people look at is the levelized cost per kilowatt hour over the lifetime of the device.
Yeah.
Is that John who used to work for Ecotricity? Just to give that John's got some experience there, I think, Andrew.
No, I am a member of the Energy Institute.
Okay.
I worked for CEGB for quite a while, and I do know quite a lot about electricity systems.
Right.
I'm chairman of the board of a large community-owned solar farm, 15 megawatts of solar. So you need to get into that sort of territory with a levelized cost which is competitive at a few pence per kilowatt hour. Otherwise, I don't want to sound too negative. This won't go anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, the systems that you're looking at here are really elementary systems. We're not using the technology that we should be using. At this stage, if we were talking about real size coils, real size magnets, then the real energy would be a lot more than what we're producing here. So these are really basic low cost systems. If we were scaling up, we would be talking about much larger coils, much larger magnets, and obviously the cost of that would go up. However, we're also talking about an energy source that is, I mean, if you take, say, for example, oscillating columns that operate in this in oceanic systems, they're much larger coil type systems. So if we were to scale up, we would need to scale up, for an industrial size. Perhaps what we're looking at the moment, and you are right in saying that, you would only power, maybe a mobile phone or something like that. If we stacked these units, just say, for example, we were talking about this technology. If we stack these units and we were to have a very small meter cube of this off the side of a boat, then we could easily power that boat. And that's in this form. If we were to remodel the system and we were to use components that were, essentially larger coils with larger size magnets, then the energy being produced would be a lot more.
Yeah,
I
understand that, but what I'm saying is, have you done any scaling up calculations for this?
We've done some scaling up calculations, yes, and I've seen that producing a kilowatt, which is obviously 1,000 times more energy, would mean a longer array.
Longer by how much? Yeah.
So so there are some calculations that we've sort of gone into around about a 10-meter array by 10 meter by 10 meter, when we've done the calculation for that, but we're still restricted because you can only do so much math before you start looking at things like that you've got some factors to deal with inefficiencies of things like the conductivity and other resistance factors. However, even bringing those factors in, we have still managed to say, look, within a reasonable space, a 10-meter space, we're able to create this much from a single layer. Then we can stack several layers on top of one another. We would be generating a lot more than we would even bargain for.
I know if you make it bigger, it takes a lot more, but you need engineering calculations to show whether what you can do in a proper space. And are you aware that lots of marine energy devices have been tested that work in different ways, and they generally struggle to survive the harsh environment, because not only do they have to work in what you might call normal conditions, they have to work under storm conditions. So they have to be very rugged and robust. Otherwise, they just smash themselves to bits.
Yeah. I mean, relevant points. But I think scaling up needs to be worked out. Go on, Andrew, and then Tim's got a question. Go for it.
We're not quite at that stage yet, but what we know is that we don't need to go to the harsher environments. We can actually operate and generate electricity. We can operate these and generate electricity on relatively small waves. That's what we do know.
Yeah, this pendulum technology. Well, a couple of things really. Are you really looking small scale, or I know you said the potential of this. It could provide a great amount of energy. So, in the long term, are you looking to scale up so it could be connected to the grid, or so it could be, we could be getting this sort of power actually supplied into our homes. And the other question really was, are there any energy systems around at the moment using this pendulum technology, and other systems working on developing the pendulum and the efficient device method of creating power?
There are some people that are using oscillating columns to generate electricity from waves, but in general, there's not a pendulum form of it. No, so there's no pendulum format of it. And to be honest, when you've got it on a pendulum, you've got oscillation, and oscillation provides you with energy that you don't have to. It's disposable because of gravity, so it maintains momentum, and anything, as Newton would have said, anything in motion will remain in motion until acted upon by another force. So if you've got technology like this, then you can certainly be sure that you would be able to use it and use momentum to maintain a good amount of yield from it. It's a format, and keep in mind that, I mean, the ocean never stops moving. So rivers, that they receive energy in from those, from the ocean. We don't have to go out to the ocean. We can keep a pendulum moving constantly, on the riverside, and it's actually quite easy to do. And that constant supply of electricity is quite easy to capacitate as well, and store, and reuse. So what we choose to use it for, I mean, eventually, yes, you could have much larger systems with multiple arrays, and you'd be generating a fair amount of electricity. So, I mean, has anybody got any other questions? We've got some other examples of how we can use that technology. I mean, as I say, whether it would be for mainstream, you know, large wave energy systems, or just small small energy systems that people can actually, you know, use, while especially when they're not in you know, sort of a sunnier region of the world. You know, obviously, or if you're in a tree covered region or anything like that, then certainly some of this technology, you know, which you literally carry it around, and then it will provide you with an energy source, that can be quite, you know, quite useful in itself in an emergency situation, you know, where you need a source of energy. Things like this, you know, could be quite useful. And those are just the smaller generators. But the larger generators is obviously what we're all looking for. You know, we're looking for the bigger energy. So I'm hoping that the oceans will be one format. Wind again, you know, this sort of oscillating systems, it's not rotating at a ridiculous speed. And that means that you can have those in areas that you couldn't have a rotary system. Like on the side of a road, we've got some test systems where they literally reuse the wind being generated from passing traffic. You couldn't have a turbine on the side of the road because of safety reasons, you know, capturing that energy. So that's a particularly good area. But then we've also got a system where, from compression, in other words, the weight of a vehicle, the mass and the weight of a vehicle, it will also generate from that, it will make these oscillate essentially. If you've got a moment, I can quickly show you that system actually.
Yeah, if you want to try and share it.
This is just an interview that I actually got invited to debut the technology at Tech Expo in London, and I was invited to actually just come along and debut it. And this is the actual right here is the actual video that they made. So this bit of technology here is what I'm talking about. So this is linear momentum. Now, this linear momentum can really be upscaled. And as I say, again, something that you can't really do with the rotary systems, you can't just punch a load of energy into it because you'll break the gear system. So the only way that you can activate a system like that is possibly, you know, a pendulum type system with a non-gear ratio. So you're not really using gears at all. What you're actually using is a different push mechanism, and this push mechanism, well, you could put any amount of force into it really, and you're not really going to break it. All you're going to do is move it, and then the pendulums will essentially move.
For example, passing the vehicle, if you imagine this being in the water, and it will take
that was very quick
of the sea.
That was very quick. I don't think I've got many examples of that, but I'll rewind it again.
And
deliver, you can see when I push down on this device,
and we can make these into 3D.
So, oops, I think I've lost it now. But oh, there it is. Right. So when you push down on the device, and you could, the more weight that you put onto that device, the more energy that you could utilize from it. And in actual fact, again, you could make a very large structure of that low cost structure, and that could generate, you know, vast amounts of electricity from moving traffic. And that's just traffic rolling over. They're showing a dog harness, which I think I had the video up, where you can actually see my dog wearing it. So that's a dog harness, and it weighs probably around about 100 grams, which is not even a large chocolate bar. And it just now allows me to see my dog at night when she's running around in the woods. But again, there's no battery in that device. It will work forever. Oh, I've actually got got that here. So if I just turn that, and you can sort of see how that works. I don't know if you can see that, but
Yeah, I think
I'm not
Fluffy female as well, but
that's really it.
Fluffy.
That, in a nutshell, is the technology. It uses movement to generate electricity, and hopefully we'll be using it long into the future. Reduce batteries and reduce the grid. So in a nutshell, that's us.
Absolutely amazing, really. You know, it needs scaling up and working up to the next stage. But you know, the potential. You know, Britain's an island nation to have this around the coast of many different nations, or on boats, or floating cities, or whatever we're going to need with the flooding in the future. It's something we really need to look into. Is there any other questions or feedback there from folks? With
Right. Point number 1, very interesting. Point number 2, I have seen things before about various ideas of doing things, never hear of them again. That it needs, if it's as good as it seems, it needs some professional pushing it. Point number 3, no offense meant, but the presentation needs to be 100 times better. Particularly, you're showing a white box against a white background. Quite hard to see on the video.
Oh, okay.
So have a black wall behind you. Point number
Gotcha.
4, I have a suspicion that one of the reasons that onshore winds is practically impossible to get past through planning, whereas offshore winds seems to work, is whoever controls power in both sense, political power as well as energy power. You might come up against people who don't want you to succeed.
good point.
Yeah, I mean, there might very well be that, but nevertheless, the concept is out there, and I'm hoping that people will spread awareness and realize, you know, the urgency, you know, for their own reasons. You know, there are 1 billion people on the planet that have no electricity at all. This is an extremely low cost, easily, you know, developed system. So I'm hoping that there are going to be communities that it will be really useful to. 50% of people live by coastal areas, or 40% of people to 50%. You know, obviously it's rising, but that's a huge percentage of people that live by coastal areas, and the rest of, you know, most population lives somewhere within a vicinity of a river. So yeah, I mean, we only need a few waves to make a fair amount of energy, and it, you know, it's a sort of system that will last for many, many decades. You know, possibly, you know, 100 years wouldn't be, you know, unthought of in this sort of technology. So and to recycle it again, as I say, you can easily recycle it. Most of the components from it, you know, easily recycled. If not, you just interchange them, rather than even having to completely dismantle it and recycle it.
Yeah,
Very low impact.
I think what I'm trying to get across here is most of us realize that we need something to happen in the next 2, 3, 4 years. And again, no offense, hoping that people will get on board isn't good enough. It's got to be a deliberate plan for how it's going to grow, a timeline, a business plan. I'm not that person, but maybe someone like Dale Vince or whatever is. I don't know, but I think it's something.
I would agree that we need, you know, obviously I need more, you know, beef to, you know, on the bone, excuse the pun, but you know, that's the actual, you know, term, I guess. But when we look at things like nuclear fusion, say for example, where we've spent billions of billions of dollars on nuclear fusion, and from nuclear fusion we've been able to, 192 of the most powerful lasers in the world have managed to produce nuclear fusion, but we can only produce 2 units in, 3 units out, and that's around about 1.5 extra units, per charge if you want. But we'd need to, on a magnitude, we'd need to be generating, one every, or 10 of these per second. We're not able to produce one every few hours. So fusion is a long way off. Any other technology that we've got, it isn't, it's costly. We have to extract a lot of materials from the earth. So I do think that already, we're creeping into an arena where hopefully, given the right boost, given the right scenarios, business scenarios, that is, there is a case there that could be served, because there are 1 billion people without electricity. We're currently
Andrew, could you stop screen sharing? There's a request there, just so people can see you
sorry,
on
no
YouTube.
worries.
I think it's an amazing concept and product, and it really needs support and scaling up. And people have said that there's problems with wave power, about how strong it is and whether it lasts and how much it generates. But it's got a massive potential, and this is something, if we want to get beyond the fossil fuels, we've really got to get behind and support projects like this. I think there was Michael might have a question there. Had a question earlier, and also there was someone, Pendar, in the chat, said he knew people in the shipping industry who would be interested. And I think Fluffy, who had to go off, he worked with something called the Fair Trade Sail Cargo Association and others, and they've worked a lot on kind of decarbonising the boat industry. This is something that could really work for boats. Yes. A smaller scale cube that could hang out behind, or a couple of them behind your boat, could probably charge the lights, the mobile, the laptop. I've lived in a few vehicles, and I know it doesn't take that much from a solar panel or whatever to power your lights, your laptops, and your music and the rest. This could be, energizing a small living pod of some sort. Any other questions, feedback, or anything there? I don't know if Michael wanted that question there, if he's still there. Anyone else for last comments, feedback, or I think thank you so much. It's really informative.
Thank you very, very much. I'm hoping that Active Kinetic 1 will one day be combined with other renewables, and it will help to reduce the carbon emissions that we're wanting to do very desperately. So I hope it will join that arena of renewables for everyone.
Cool. Yeah, let's do it.
Thank you for your time.
A last point. I'm not trying to be negative. I think what you've done is wonderful.
Thank you.
But what do you want us to do with it?
Well, I guess what I'm after from Climate Emergency Centre is to not forget it. Put it out there that it's a new method. I mean, this is a core energy technology. We can adapt it to so many different things. As I say, we can reverse what we're doing a little bit in the format of the energy that's not being conserved from vehicles moving around on the road. We could conserve some of that energy. Obviously, there's wave energy as well. It's something to spread awareness about and let people know that potentially there's a missing loop. There's a missing loop in the chain, and maybe if we were to use technologies, or look at a different system of generating energy, the fundamental core, is all rotary motion, and I'm not convinced that rotary is the only method of generating electricity after seeing a lot of the experiments that I've undertaken. I think that we're missing a huge loop in that that chain. So I guess it's to spread awareness about this technology. You know, post the link, you know, and mention it when you can.
Do you want to put a contact there for you, direct email or anything in the chat? I think Michael, I don't know if you wanted to, he said he was interested in this, possibly to invest or something. Michael, I don't know if you can unmute and say something. I'll ask you to unmute.
Certainly, you know, you can always contact me on LinkedIn, through the website. It's got a contact form, so I'm always open to hear suggestions. As I say, we have had some investment interest, and you know, we're willing to collaborate with people. We want to combine the technology with things like solar. So you know, if you're already working on projects like that, then you know, we could combine that type of technology. You know, they're thinking about putting floating solar farms out there. This would make an ideal base for that technology to sit on top of, and you'd be generating a lot of energy.
Wow, I love that. Yeah, energy floating on with solar panels on top. All right, on that note,
less land being
look
used.
it up, ladies and gentlemen. Active Kinetic. Email and contact Andrew directly. Let's get these renewable energies of the futures out there. It's really, really important. I think back around the Iraq wartime, we created a display called 14 Alternative Energy Sources to Oil. They are out there. They do exist. All sorts of, you know, alternative energy sources. Let's get using them. Let's get networking them. And we're really serious about going beyond the fossil fuel empire. We need to support projects like this. I'll stop the recording there. If people